Good morning, everyone, and welcome to us kicking off our vintage healthcare series. And today I picked grief and lung health because we are in the middle of winter, which is metal and lung, which we'll get into. And also, the world is going through a lot right now. So I figure anything that we can do to really help us garner our own health and make our days a little bit brighter, and also have some information that we can pass on to our friends and family. This should be super helpful. So, friendly reminders, please turn off your camera and microphone as you're here listening. We're just waiting for a few more to trickle in. And then make sure if you do have any questions that you put those below in the chat box or upload them to YouTube under the video, and we will be answering them as quickly as we can. So we will get started. Awesome. All right. So everyone take a second to just settle into their chair. Make sure they have something to drink. We'll be here for about 25-30 minutes. And then just take a couple deep breaths to make sure that everything is cleared out. We've woken up our lungs and we're ready to get started. So we're going to discuss specifically the relationship of the lungs, how they hold and process our grief, and then the ways that traditional Chinese medicine and the Western world also looks at lung care as a whole, why it's important, and then also some action items that you can filter into your own life as far as resources and different types of breathing techniques. So, also, if you are in a crisis, please call 988. This is only for informational purposes only and is not a replacement for therapy or any Western medical diagnoses or replacement for medication. So, about me, my name is Dr. Kelly Eloise. I am an Eastern physician and I have had a private practice for about 15 years, and it is in Bellingham, Washington. I absolutely love it up here. We're nestled away in a nice little cove, so it is definitely great for getting out, fresh air, hiking, and making sure that our bodies are in the best health that we can. I hold a doctorate in Eastern medicine and also enjoy educating and writing and painting. So making sure that you just listen to your own body and that you are incorporating anything into your life that you do absolutely love to do, which in my case is teaching at Eastern medicine. So here we are. All right. So, just a few questions to kind of get your awareness onto what we will be talking about today. So, to process grief, we need a bigger window of tolerance and patience. And this comes from a regulated nervous system. Right now, there is amazing research coming out about trauma, neurodivergence, dysregulated nervous systems, and then tools to get that back into place. I really believe that this is where the future is going as far as our health, all these unexplained symptoms that we have, making sure that all of our organs are really functioning at their highest. And to get there, we need a regulated nervous system to make sure that we can handle more stress, and that we can heal quicker, and that our cells are as healthy as they can be. And to do that, we need to be able to process our grief, process our trauma. And today, hopefully, you'll be able to take a little bit with you to help facilitate that. So, for a few of these, if you're dealing with grief, grief likes to hide a lot of the times. It'll hide under anger, it'll hide under busyness, it'll hide under boredom, it'll hide under substance abuse. So, just make sure that if you are witnessing any of those in your life, to make sure that you reach out to a friend and that you're really diving into what's underneath that. Because if we're not aware of subconsciously what's going on in our body, what our organs are holding on to. The body always keeps the score. We really can't release that and move forward. And I think going into 2025, making sure that we are aware of what's going on internally, bringing that to the surface and healing whatever it is going to be really important. So I want us to be aware if that we are eating or sleeping too little or too much, because dysregulation will show up in our interoception, the way that we can tell if our bodies are hungry or sleepy or tired. That is also thrown off by grief. If our energy is really off, if we have low energy, too high energy, mania, busyness, or if we have just a complete loss of motivation, a type of anhedonia, just losing interest in what we really used to love and do. an inability to perform daily tasks. This will get away from you sometimes. You'll kind of all of a sudden realize you haven't taken a shower in 2 or 3 days, which can be grief. It can also be neurodivergence, which we will get into that on another Vintage Healthcare series. Yawning and a loss of focus, that can be a way of the body trying to pull in more oxygen, and also lack of oxygen to the brain. Depression, anxiety, feeling stagnant, your immune system being down, so constantly getting sick, digestive issues, as well as showing that our vagus nerve that innervates our lungs and our digestive system is off a little bit. And then also low back and leg pain is going to be a big piece of holding fear and grief and everything else in the body. All right, we'll start with a little information about TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, before we get into some of the boring stats in Western medicine. Equally as important, just not as interesting. So, lungs are responsible for processing grief in Eastern medicine. Every organ has a job. So, our liver is there to process anger, our lungs are there to hold and process grief, and so on. The meridian that innervates the lung and helps carry the energy and make sure that it is flowing through the body properly actually starts on the top of our hand from our thumb and divides all the way up into the chest. I will fix all these typos as we're going along, but I figured if I didn't do this today, it would not get done. So, also, crying regulates grief and lung energy. A lot of the times when people have an inability to cry, they have a lot of trauma, their body doesn't feel safe to process that. So it'll kind of stuff it down. So people will have a problem crying, regulating their system. Therefore, a lot of the times that's where you see dysregulated immune system, constant colds coming through. And so we will hopefully get to a more regulated space to where our body feels safe to express and to cry. Also, breathing, as we've heard, circulates the free flow of qi, also helps pull in oxygen. So, qi is this beautiful source that everybody's heard the word, but I just want to touch on it for a minute. That qi is everywhere. It is literally the life force that pours in every time we breathe. It is the electricity that functions through our nervous system. It is the things that fire our mitochondria that helps produce ATP and energy. It is the steam that comes off a bowl of rice. It is what happens to when a flower opens. It is that life force that helps catalyze any kind of metabolic processes that we have. And then also in Eastern medicine, every organ is associated with different properties. And so properties for the lung falls into the season of fall. Lung also doesn't like dryness. So you always know when you have one of those dry coughs that won't go away, we have a little bit of damaged lung qi. And then also, again, touching on that it is responsible for the immune system, which is called Wei Qi. So a lot of people don't know there are several different types of Qi, and they, again, all have a job, just like the organs, just like everything else. They wear different hats, just like we do. They're also under a lot of stress. And so it's imperative that we listen to them and give them the specific things that we need. We definitely house a myriad of different personalities and organs and people and wants and needs. And so bringing that back into our focus, I think, is really important. And a lot of the energies and sounds that gravitate towards the lung is crying, a low voice, anguish, grief, lowered immunity again, fatigue, lethargy, and depression. So keep in mind, if you've ever run across someone who you can just barely hear speak and they're really kind of hunched over and it's very quiet and they seem really sad. So that's somebody that has some damaged lung qi, and there are breathing techniques that can help with that. But a lot of the times those people will have had something in their past that will have damaged their lung qi, either excessive trauma or say recurrent bronchitis when they were a kid. Whatever that looks like will manifest later in life as a really low voice, low energy, lower immune system. And then we'll go over a couple of points. If you want to search further down in the YouTube section under this, you'll find videos relating also to the location of lung 3 and lung 7, which you can self-stimulate at home. Again, there is also an acupressure workbook attached down below that I think you guys will have fun with. It'll give you more of an idea of how to simulate these and exactly where they are. So, just a quick overview before you guys kind of veer off into those really good resources after this. So, lung three is going to be right underneath the shoulder. It is great for processing grief. It's going to be right here by the bicep. And this is a good way that we self medicate. When we're really sad, if you notice that we'll really grab our upper arms, or when people hug us, it's always around this area, or whenever we do these butterfly hugs to regulate our nervous system, we're literally tapping lung three, and that's helping everything tonify it, move through the system, release any stagnation, and do its job properly. And then lung seven, which is really good for the immune system, is a specific point on your wrist on the thumb side. And this is a good one too, as well, that you can acupressure that helps boost the immune system. Right now, I am in Bellingham in January. It is 27 degrees. So right now, hot tea, herbs, and stimulating lung seven is what I'm going to do later today. So, lungs are not only for breathing, but it's also to process and hold our grief and our sorrow. This is a very famous quote from one of our traditional texts from a couple thousand years ago. Our lungs are incredibly resilient, and they are there to hold and process our grief. And we owe it to recognize that, do our breathing techniques, and help it move as much as possible. We have stewardship over this avatar, and making sure that we're paying attention to each little moving part as best as we can is something that I think we're moving into the future as holistic healthcare, vintage healthcare, and putting our own agency to our health back into our hands. So being responsible for structure and routine, they also, again, going back to the emotions and grief that they hold, there's also these different properties. So they really like structure and routine. They breathe on their own. They don't like dryness. They are related to fall and metal, which tends to have that scaffolding of structure around it. And it's also good for letting go. So breathing and processing that grief. If you've ever had a really intense breath work series, by the end of it, you're usually crying or emotional, and you're really tired. And that's because the lung has been able to get in enough oxygen, move the stagnation, and release some of that emotional grief that has been pent up. Therefore, we are able to hold and speak our boundaries more healthfully, and that we're also able to have a better balance of life. Okay, so lung health, while it is a very old concept in the East as far as spiritually, esoterically, physically, mentally, in Eastern medicine, it's a newer form as far as delving into the specifics of it. They all know just okay, let's breathe, and they're great for medications. And like I said, recurrent chronic issues. We love that we have that. But in Eastern medicine, we really are able to dive into the emotions, the psyche, the energy, the way that it moves through everything. And I think addressing our organs in our body as a whole on multiple different dimensions is something that the Western medicine has just not caught up to yet. And I feel like that's where we're going to be really good at integrating is, if I break my leg, take me to the hospital. But for the most of everything else, for preventative health and having the information that we need to continually become healthier, really Eastern medicine is going to be the best way and have the most things that we can incorporate into our daily life to make sure that we don't get sick in the first place. So we take about 600 million breaths in a lifetime if we get lucky enough to live to old age. Oxygenates our body, going back to AP Bio from ninth grade, regulates our energy and our mood and cognitive ability because of that oxygenation. Our right lung is bigger. This is just basic anatomy because our heart is a little displaced over to the left. So our left lung is a little bit smaller. Our diaphragm muscle that is right in our solar plexus underneath our rib cage is a great muscle, and that's also a big help in breathing. It's a breathing muscle, and that's when they say breathe into your belly, pull out the sides. We're activating that diaphragm. It also is what, when you get hiccups, it's that spasm. It's the spasm of the diaphragm that's just annoying hiccups. Hi, honey. And then also, it's also used to massage the psoas muscle and other organs. So we forget that we are creatures that are supposed to move. We are supposed to breathe. We are supposed to be outside. We are supposed to be hunting for our food. We are supposed to be in community. And when our bodies are stuck in front of a computer and we're not moving that diaphragm, we're not moving, we're not twisting, we're not walking, we're not moving our psoas, which is these really deep hip muscles, we become stagnant. Our energy becomes lower, our body becomes less efficient, and we age a lot faster. And so this is one of my bigger goals, is just to realize how much agency we do have over our health moving into the future, because it's easier to stop it before we get there and something breaks than it is to fix something that's broken. Shallow breathing versus deep breathing is also a good way to tell how regulated your nervous system is. So, if you just kind of bring your attention throughout the day to how you're breathing, a lot of the times we're breathing into our upper chest right here, short, shallow breaths, which activates our, fight or flight, which increases cardiovascular disease, increases probability of dementia, increases digestive issues. So, bringing your attention back to that, and even if it's just a few times a day of going, oh, I'm really shallow breathing, let's take a minute to just really breathe, activate that diaphragm, breathe into our belly, breathe out to the sides of the ribs, and you will immediately feel better after 5 or 6 breaths. And then you'll feel more clear headed. You can make better decisions, get on with your day. Um, Wear respirators when necessary and avoid smoking. Again, basic self care. Make sure when you're painting or you're in the sawmill, I'm speaking to my guys mostly right now. They're the guys that don't want to wear the masks when they're out doing pipe fitting or whatever it is. Please wear your respirators. It is much more dangerous and will affect you later in life than you know. And also avoid any kind of smoking if possible. Staying hydrated, again, because the lung hates being dry. So making sure that you're well hydrated, make sure that everything can pump fluidly and doesn't get sticky and painful. I think we've all had one of those weird, sharp chest pains or a rib out to where you breathe and it's super painful. Being hydrated can really keep that to a minimum as well. And then, of course, regular cardio. I like strength training. It is very difficult for me to get my cardio in. So, making sure that if that's one of your weak spots, that you're planning it, and that you're getting it in safely, and that you're listening to your body as well as you're going through this. One of the most important things in Eastern medicine is that it is specifically tailored for each person. So the best thing that you can do is really get to know your specific body. If that means journaling, if that means picking out things cardio wise that you're actually going to do. If you're not a runner, if your knees hurt, if you hate it, don't pick it because you're not going to do it. So if you like rowing and a rowing machine is better for back pain or knee injuries that you've had in the past, go get on a rowing machine. So things like that, I think we get pigeonholed and we think we have to listen to this bullet point thing and we have to follow it exactly. And what I'm really trying to get across with this vintage healthcare series is that we are all so different. We are all going to gravitate towards certain things. We're all going to have energy in different times of the day. We're going to enjoy different foods. We're going to live in different climates. And so making sure that we're taking that into account as we're moving along. Here's some herbs and tools really quickly. These can be made into teas, into herbal steam showers, and they're a great way to really warm our system. So it really increases our metabolism, helps fluid throughout the body, helps our chi build, helps our immune system build. And these are a few of the big ones. So I think we're all pretty familiar with ginseng, turmeric, tulsi, oregano. Marshmallow root and licorice are some of the ones that aren't known as well for lung health. And again, there's some great information in our community online. And I'll also be putting some more stuff about how to make specific teas following Eastern medicine, because it is a really specific art form. Even if you've just had like a basic green tea that you've steeped too long and it gets kind of bitter and loses some of that property, it is a really good rule of thumb to have a specific way to boil your teas. And I mean, all you need is a teapot and an egg timer, and everything else really falls into place after that. Especially with YouTube and all the resources out there, there's some great ways to to take your health back, and getting those habits in place without looking for this immediate um, resolve is wonderful, right? Our goal is to get the habits in place every day to where we're doing breathing techniques, we're eating our healthy food, we're moving our body, and not thinking about anything else. If we show up every day and we do what we're supposed to do, 9 times out of 10, everything else will take care of itself. All right, let's get into some fun stats about medicinal breath work. There is a ton of great research coming out. Here's a few of them that I'm going to go over really quick. And then, as far as Western medicine is concerned, they are actually finding huge benefits in working in breath work to a multitude of different ailments. So they've already proven that it can reduce cortisol, it can improve mood, it can increase your heart rate variability. And for those who don't know what HRV is, it is a metric that Apple Watch and a few other ones will record while you're asleep. And the higher that is, the better in tune and regulated your nervous system is. So, again, just another metric that we can look at to give us an idea of exactly where our system is. Decreased resting heart rate, better sleep, also improves our heart health, and it also changes our brain waves from beta to alpha. So this is a brain state where we're alert, but we're calm, where we can make better decisions, we can respond well, but also our stress is low because we have a higher threshold. We know that we can tackle what's about to come our way. Again, there's great research, and you can find a lot of these on some really great resources. I implore people that as they're looking for research, as they're looking for practitioners, please make sure that your practitioner is licensed. And also make sure that if you're getting any stats or any type of work that's out there, that you're making sure it's coming from a reputable source. So National Institute of Health, PubMed, all of these have great research papers that you can find and read over, which makes it a really good, reliable source. These are a few of them that we will go over specifically in later courses because I love going through these and doing full meditations with each of these. So the one that I'm going to point out this specific course is a long exhale. The long exhale actually has the most research backing it as far as regulating the nervous system and improving overall well-being. So this is when we'll breathe in for 4, hold for 2, and then breathe out either 6 or 8. And we can do this any point during the day if you realize that you're stressed out, that you haven't been breathing properly or breathing shallowly. We can take a minute, we can breathe in for 4, hold for 2, and then just breathe out as slow as we can. Again, you can also go through pursed lips, and that helps quite a bit as well. So for an example, that will immediately tell the vagus nerve and the brain, after a few of those, that you are in a safe space. It will turn on the frontal lobe. Again, you'll be able to make better decisions, and your body will just break down slower. Nadi Shodhana, touching on that one really quick. You might know that one as alternate nostril breathing, a really good Ayurvedic practice from India. The sigh is really good, especially during grief. We do that subconsciously to help regulate our lung qi. A lot of Eastern medicine was found just from observation. So it was the way that they could tell that our nervous system was overwhelmed because you would just start sighing a lot. And that would just be the body's natural way of getting more oxygen. Box breathing is the 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. And so that is a really popular one and an easy one to remember. Continuous and Kundalini are a little bit more intense, and we still need some more research around those. They have been around for thousands of years, and they're extremely effective. I'm only saying this off of the current studies that we have from Western medical research. So, I mean, I don't know why it's only 72% experience high stress. I quite honestly believe that at some point in our lives, 100% of us will go through extremely high stress and trauma. 12% practice breath work. This is just a huge missed opportunity that could change communities, that could change your whole health, that could put us on a really good track moving forward to become better and age slower. 80% of our vagal communication, so I already mentioned the vagus nerve once, it is coming out with a ton of great books and a ton of great research. If you haven't heard of the vagus nerve, it is one of the cranial nerves that travels from the brain, one of the only ones that leaves the brain and goes into the body and actually helps regulate, again, our heart, our lungs, our stomach, and tells our body if it needs to run from a tiger and vice versa. So the weird thing is, a lot of the times people think the brain only goes to the body. The brain is telling our body what to do at all times. But our body is so intuitive that a lot of the times the body will tell the brain what to think. So if we're at our desk, we're stressed with emails, we're shallow breathing, it will tell our brain to panic. We'll be tired, we won't sleep well, we won't eat well, we won't make good decisions. So making sure that we're breathing, it will help all of our organs calm down, which will in turn help our brain calm down. It's one of those things. A lot of people think that motivation comes first and then we do the action. It is the opposite. Unfortunately, you have to start the actions. The motivation and the clarity comes later. And then currently studying the effects on gut health, depression, anxiety, and pain relief through breathing techniques, through regulating the vagus nerve, which is amazing that we have the technology and the systems now to actually record that. Also, we have a great ton of research on watching the acupuncture points and how they function in the body and how they're actually able to work and do what they do. Recent study found that people who practice breath work report 43% less stress, better mental health, and those who didn't exercise or do breathing techniques, unfortunately, did not get to have a takeaway with that benefit. Relationship with cortisol, shallow breathing, and CO2 buildup. Your cortisol will rise with shallow breathing, period. So making sure that if you're trying to get your cortisol under check, whether you're through a naturopath or under chronic stress, shallow breathing will systemically tell our brain that we are safe and therefore will lower cortisol. So if you're suffering from adrenal burnout or adrenal fatigue, which I feel like a huge portion of America is, shallow breathing will amplify that, and deep breathing will really help calm down our nervous system, lower cortisol levels, up our HRV, lower our heart rate. It is just a win-win-win. East meets West. Again, hitting on both of these, we should have both. We should use both. This is not an either or. I'm not out here to be against West or East or one's better, one's not. They're both wonderful. And I think we're finally garnering some respect in the allopathic world because we have such great studies at the National Institute of Health and through PubMed that is showing the research, and it's blowing things out of the water. I mean, they're showing that a lot of breathing techniques done over specific amounts of time are better than a lot of antidepressants. And so for me, that is one huge reason to get this out into the world, because there are a lot of things out there that don't work, and we need access to everything so we can really just throw spaghetti at walls. And I mean, if SSRIs don't work for you, or they have some negative effects or symptoms in your body, try working with your therapist or your medical doctor or your naturopath or your licensed physician to incorporate that to see if it can be a good addition to medications or anything else that you're doing. We have great facilities in UCSD, Harvard, a bunch of other places and colleges around that are doing great collaborations that are funding a lot of these great research opportunities for us. So just keep your ears and eyes open. And there's also beautiful stuff coming out of addiction and PTSD facilities that are helping people get just agency over their life back and getting over addiction, calming their PTSD, and moving on a little bit with their lives. Wim Hof is a really big popular one right now. If you haven't heard of him, he's the Iceman. He has become very famous. And so I like to call attention to people that other people might have heard of so that they know that there's a lot of things out there for us to lean on right now. And he is hilarious. If you've never seen him, he's got some great YouTube breathing videos. So I always implore people to go watch those as well. And there's still a lot of prejudice between the worlds. So again, getting all the information out there, seeing how we can intertwine East and West, and making sure that we're not thinking it's one way or the other, making sure that we have room for both of these, because there will be an increased effectiveness, safety, and quicker recovery for people. And right now, I mean, sick care is sick care. And so I want to make sure that we use sick care when we're sick, that if we need surgery or we have broken bones, that we're there for that. But we'll also want us to know that we can prevent a lot of different chronic health issues, especially aging and strokes and heart issues when we get older, if we are diligent now about the practices that we have. There are some wonderful books and podcasts. I also tacked some of these on the very last slide that I will leave up as far as resources and citations. So you guys can either write that down, you can pause it on YouTube, write some stuff, click on some stuff. But just off the bat, Breath by Nestor is a wonderful book. And then there's some podcasts too. The Woo and Breathwork Club are a couple of my personal favorites. It's great. Building habits is really difficult. Pulling in new information is extremely difficult. So if all you can do is put on a podcast about breathing while you're on your way to work and do 2 or 3 minutes of breathing, you're ahead of 95% of the people, and that is already going to help you not have a crash in the afternoon. It's going to help you make better decisions when you get to work. It's going to have your frontal lobe kicked on. It's going to increase your lung capacity and cardiovascular health. It's just one of the best things that you can do. All right. Again, I just want to touch on that this is a direct line to our nervous system. The threshold that we have available to our brain and to our family and to our life. It's been used for thousands of years for physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health, and also used to connect to the divine. So if you are big into spirituality, you will know that there is some sort of breathing, singing, chanting. There is something that is making the breath move, the lungs pump, and connecting us to this vital force, this prana, this energy that really runs the show, so to speak. And so being able to breathe and use that as a spiritual way to connect has been around for thousands of years. And so there's tons of resources on that as well. Try a bunch of them. Try one that works best for you. Everybody's a little bit different as far as what resonates with their nervous system. So make sure you don't get just pigeonholed on one unless it really works for you. But also pepper in some different ones, because I think it is really good to see how your body reacts to a bunch of them. And our goal with what we're going into is to cultivate our connection and saturation to prana. So a little bit more Eastern medicine here, really quick, pulling in from the Vedas and Ayurvedic and TCM, that we really do believe that the breath is our connection to source, to God, to life force, to energy, whatever your relationship with energy is. Our breathing techniques are a way to connect with that. And again, for thousands of years, through thousands of different cultures, our breath is our life force. Our breath is the sacred. Our breath is what connects us to everything around us. And then it's actually called the Po spirit. So every organ, again, not only does it have its different types of chi and its different types of jobs and properties, it also has a sweet spirit that takes care of it and transforms. And this enables us to connect to the present moment, is what our lungs spirit is able to do, which is why when you meditate and you breathe, it pulls you into the now. And if you pay attention, when you breathe in, your mind stops. You literally can't think or ruminate when you are breathing in and out and paying attention to your breath. Sure, it wanders halfway through and you pull it back and go back to the breath, because this is something that pulls us into this direct moment, which, as we always know, is the only thing that matters anyways. And it activates with our first breath. The Po spirit comes in and then it returns home with our last. So if you want to call that our spirit or our soul or whatever it is, it travels in and out through the breath our whole life. And when our breath stops, the spirit returns home. It is called a multitude of different words in a ton of different cultures. Prana, life force, spark in the machine. There's a great book called that I love. Source, somatic expression of soul. I really liked that one a lot. It's also our corporeal one. So it's the one that is connected to this plane of existence. And in future series, we'll talk about the ones that are connected to the heavens and how those all interrelate through our different energy sheaths. It's also duality because it has to separate itself from source to animate this avatar. And then also it is pertaining to some of our ghosts. So a lot of the time, sometimes our breath can be stuck in this plane of existence. And there are a lot of belief systems around that. But again, whatever you believe, you can do some great research into some beautiful cultures who believe that this spirit and this breath is our fragments of source, of our soul, of our connection. And it's absolutely beautiful. So regular breath work is integral to life. And when we are mentally regulated, we can realize our abilities, we can cope with stress better, our work is more productive, and we just contribute to society as a whole because we just aren't as angry and anxious and pent up as much because we're moving that stagnation through. Purposeful breath work is one of the best tools that we can have to moderate our mental, physical, and emotional health, period. All right, just going to close this up with a few other little tidbits. Make sure that you're connecting with others. So if you have questions as we're going along, put them down in the chat. We'll try to answer those as much as possible. You can follow us on Instagram or on here on YouTube. Make sure that if you're going to someone that they are licensed. Tai Chi and Qigong is beautiful exercises that also helps bring in energy, life force, Qi, and stimulates a lot of our immune system, cardiovascular health, and is a wonderful, gentle piece to add to your day. Scream therapy, always great. I'm sure we've all heard of the birth of the rage rooms or screaming into pillows. That has been around for a long time. Your body needs to process. And if we're not crying or lamenting or screaming or sharing our voice with somebody or sharing our truth with someone, it will at some point become stagnant and start to trickle down into physical ailments. Also, a big piece is to mind your diet. So making sure you're staying away from inflammatory foods, which can really gunk up the lungs and just slow things down as a whole. And then the lungs really, really like any kind of white herbs or foods, onions, potatoes, turnips, pears. Going back to the tea herb page that we spoke about earlier. So anything as far as licorice, ginseng, turmeric, anything that's nourishing and warming is great for the lungs. You always know that it doesn't like that dry cold. So if you go out right now in 27-degree weather on the Canadian border, you'll kind of get a little cough and your lungs will seize up and it's really hard to take a deep breath. It's just because your lungs are not prepared for that. And of course, here is our massive red flag. Please see a doctor if any of this happens. If you're breathing and you have any dizziness, sit down. If you have any blood or blood in the phlegm or stool as you're coughing up, go see a doctor. If you have any high blood pressure, low blood pressure, please be careful. Also, if you're using heat therapy or freezing temps with Wim Hof or any of the other practitioners, make sure that you are aware of any medications that you're taking or diabetic issues or neuropathies. Extremely important for this. And then coma or suicide ideation. This is not appropriate for that. And then a serious threat to self or others. Again, please call 988. This is not pertaining to any of those specific situations. And then make sure you're cross-checking with your doctors about certain medications, oxygen devices, or anything else, heart devices that might interfere with some of the readings or with some of the breathwork techniques that might not be the best option for you. And if you do have any questions and you put them below, I'll try to steer you in the best direction possible. Here are a few of those resources. So I'll leave those up for a minute, a few of the sites. And then also remember to get your research from NIH or PubMed or one of the trusted colleges with a bunch of wonderful research going on. And then YouTube as well. There are so many wonderful yoga flows, wonderful meditations, wonderful different types of books and techniques that are great for processing grief. Singing and vooing. Holotropic for emotional release is that continuous breathing in and out. People can get lightheaded from that. So make sure that if you do decide to experiment with holotropic or kundalini, that you are either supervised or have gone through a proper training for that, and that you're sitting down. I love the breath necklaces. This really helps you start to train yourself and your lungs in the beginning. I use the brand Komosu. There are several different brands out there, and it's a beautiful necklace with a little device on the end that helps you breathe in a slower, more poignant way. And I think it's just great in our day and age to have something that you can touch and have with you. And then also emotional freedom tapping. I think we've all heard of tapping maybe at some point. There are some great apps, YouTube videos, and everything else that can help tap your nervous system into a more regulated state while you're breathing. That helps everything just open up a little bit better. All right. 40 minutes. Okay, that was a good trial run. Let's see how this goes. I'll see if anybody comments, and then we'll just keep going. And thank you so much for joining our volume 1 of our vintage healthcare series. And I will see you next time. Have a great day, and remember, just keep breathing.